Okay, good morning. The date is July 29th, 2026, and the time is 10:04. I hereby call to order the workshop of the City Council of the City of Groveland, Florida. Travis, could you please take the roll?
Yes, sir. Mayor Keith Keogh.
Here.
Vice Mayor Barbara Gaines.
Here.
Councilmember Amy Jo Carroll.
Here.
Councilmember Michael J. Cox.
Here.
Councilmember Stephen Shikowski.
Here.
Interim City Manager Tim Maslow.
Here.
Sergeant at Arms Chief Sean Ramsey. Here. Deputy City Clerk Travis Jackson. Here.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and with agenda item 1, please. Review the city's general fund and building funds. Mr. Maslow.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we have a good overview today from both Chris and Mike from Finance. This should give you an idea, focus primarily on the general fund and the city's building fund. You're aware that we've covered CRA in previous budget workshops along with the utilities fund. Today is primarily for the general fund and building fund. We do have some ideas. So just to set the stage, this is not a final baked budget, right? We are in a good position. Chris is going to give you a solid overview in terms of where we're at with operating reserves for the general fund, along with our debt summary and an actual profit margin that we have right now for the city's general fund. So good information with that. We're also going to cover some additional savings options that we're still exploring that will strengthen our margin here with the general fund. We expect to refine the budget between today and the August 25th workshop where we come back. And that's really going to be an overview where we look at the general fund, the utility fund, building fund, and CRA, and have a complete picture in terms of where we're going to be at for the fiscal year 27 budget from top to down for the whole city. And that's going to set you up for when we come back for the 2 adoption hearings in September. We should be on the same page. Everything should be clean, refined at that point. We also have the max millage rate adoption today. So just want to remind you, once we complete this workshop, please don't go too far. We'll restart and go over that max millage rate. So with that said, Chris, do you want to kick it off?
Good morning, everyone. I'm here to present the 2027 budget and go over details for you guys. I prepared a presentation.
Can I just say you look very professional today, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate it. In today's workshop, I'm going to cover six topics, which is the general fund revenues, the general fund and capital improvement project transfers, ad valorem, the property taxes, opportunity areas that we may have for this budget season, and finally, the building fund. I'd like to first start off with the city's cash position. At the close of the fiscal year 2025 audit, we were at 14.2, which gives us about five months worth of reserves. After me and Mike looked at things, we'll likely land about the same way as far as year-end projections for this year. So we're expected to be right around 14.2 to 15 million in similar fashion, so long as the budget plays out as expected. The budget for 2027, we're looking at revenues of 31 million with expenses of about 27.8. That leaves us, from a structural standpoint, we are balanced, and we actually have a surplus of 3.9 million, almost 4 million going into the year. We do need to take note of capital projects that are estimated at 5 million, and the fire fund with the general fund subsidy requirement of 2.8, close to 3 million that we need to offer for consideration. This slide is more of a breakout to kind of lay out how many all the different revenue types that we have and compared to the expenses. And you can see here how that totals out to the 3.9 million. And you can see, as you can see, the lion's share of the revenues is attributed to taxes when you compare it to charges for services and intergovernmental revenues. This is just a rehash from what we did over the SIP. A rule of thumb that Mr. Maslow tries to put in play from an ideological standpoint is that we really want to keep our debt below 10% of the revenues, our debt service below 10% of the revenues year over year. Right now, we're at 6%. We intend to remain at 6% without taking on any debt in fiscal year 2027. This slide is just to kind of give you a lay of what the 5 million and the 2.8 million for fire constitute. As we can see, we have the South Lake Regional Park at 1.8 and strategic initiatives along with the City Council strategic initiatives rounding off the majority of that 5 million in capital projects. The fire fund is projected to be at 2.8 this year from a general fund burden standpoint. So I want to call the attention to this because, you know, as we determine how we want to utilize the 3.9 million, we want to make sure we be mindful of November because we do have a ballot initiative that could offer fiscal consequences from a city budget standpoint. Because as you can see, the lion's share of the ad valorem is attributed to the taxes. We already filed the 420 form, and we're projected to be at 16.2 at our current 5.7 millage rate. So and that 16.2 makes up the 19 million. But as you can see, from an overall revenue standpoint, we're looking at close to 60% for ad valorem alone. And so we just kind of want to be mindful how we move forward and we navigate this year, next year, and even the following years as a result of the November ballot. General funds expenses are total with transfers out are 36 million. This kind of gives an outlay of where that's going as far as the capital outlay, operating expenses, and personnel services. Personnel services, the largest expense in most cities. We're no different. For me, that creates an opportunity area. So with that being the largest categorical expense, these are some of the things that we'll actually explore as we move forward preparing the budget. So when I say areas of opportunity, we have police, the streets, the city council initiative, and a payroll allocation plan that we kind of want to put together. This incorporates capping salaries. If you guys weren't aware, contractually, the fire department has we have a contractual obligation to offer the fire department a 4% raise. We would also, from a public safety perspective, we would also recommend that same cap for police and for all FTEs in this particular budget. Currently, it's not written as such, but we'll explore the impact of those reduction areas to kind of show you guys how that works and how that matriculates into savings. First area is police. As you can see, in the salaries line item, there's a 9% increase proposed in the budget. That can actually result, if we cap that at 4%, so that's it's indicative of fire, that will actually save a couple $100,000 when you incorporate the FICA, the retirement, the health insurance contributions. In addition, we have a interfund transfer where we offset IT expenses with the police department. We're also going to recommend removing that item because we have another way of doing it with actual real funds that actually have a 100% positive and absolute impact on the general fund, where this has zero impact on the general fund. So it would actually inadvertently reduce the total expenses of the police department, and our counter proposal will actually have an absolute impact on the general fund. The other area opportunity would be street maintenance. Right now, the salaries are up 29%. What we want to do is make sure that I'll be working with TJ to make sure that there's no position control issues related to that. If that's purely merit increases, That will actually be drawn down by, reduced to 4%, so that we would propose a 4% across the board for general employees, police, and fire. Contractual services, previously it was budgeted at 0. We have it at 200,000. We need to do some analytics to make sure that that 200,000 is a good number. Perhaps there are some areas of opportunity there where that could be reduced. Similarly with landscape maintenance and general sidewalk repairs. I think moving forward, we probably want to have a plan that's hashed out so that it can be feasibly funded with, reasonable resources, and that the actual work can actually be completed in the time frame as proposed. This was already, there's other improvements slated in this budget line item on the operation side for $550,000. This is already stipulated in the SIP plan, so that would actually reduce the expenses absolutely as well, because that's already reverberated in the SIP plan. So I would actually recommend removing that item, further reducing expenses. This line item with the strategic initiatives, we have 1.8 and 2.6, and there's the 550 there, just so you guys can see it in the capital outlay, thus removing it from the operational side. So there's about almost $4.5 million right there where we can kind of consider how far we want to go with strategic initiatives and what we intend to accomplish throughout fiscal year 27 to make sure that those initiatives are actually properly followed through on. So myself and Mr. Maslow were talking about other ideas and creative solutions to lessen the general fund burden. This is something that is we've practiced at my previous employer, where we can actually use enterprise fund dollars to offset general fund payroll-related expenses. Here's an example of a few that we are proposing, and there could be more, and how it would impact the fund, meaning that $1.3 million would be actually allocated back to the general fund and repurposed for discretionary. So in the city admin, the executive offices, they provide a support role for both utility and the CRA. So Mr. Maslow's office would, 25% and 25% from each of those funds as a cost allocation would actually do us a great benefit from a general fund perspective. Similarly, from code, I think 50% is a conservative amount compared to the support that code offers to the building fund, along with community economic development and the strategic initiatives department as well. So, those all support the building fund, and that's a very conservative cost allocation basis that could be used to help with the general fund. My department, finance, we offer support for the building fund as well and the utility fund. So 25 accordingly, and similar with IT. So if we just go with these, and there are other opportunities, we're looking at 1.3 million right there for the general fund to be reverted back to. I think the building fund slide didn't get on there, but the building fund was slated at 4 million, and we actually had in the budget plan it was listed at 3.8. I will say that we're proposing the revenues to be lessened due to a lot of the economic challenges with building and the current status of the market. So instead of 2.3 where we had budget as far as revenues, we're looking at 1.5, and so that's directly related to the expenses associated with it, because of course we have a 60% revenue share with the department. So that expense will be reduced accordingly, so that will balance itself out as well. So I had that slide on the second version. I'm sorry, guys.
Chris, any chance that slide might have been hidden on accident, or maybe we can take a break and look at another?
I made a version, and I think it got taken out.
Okay. Okay.
If Jeremiah has the old version, I think it might be in the old version. Jeremiah, if you have version 1 Would you be able to upload that?
IT's on it. Yeah. Well, perhaps while IT is working on pulling up that slide on building, we could spend a little bit of time with the council and talk more about the general fund and just get some questions and have some feedback.
Okay, we'll start with Amy Jo.
Okay, I had a couple of questions. First, what are council strategic initiatives? What are those funds spent on? Either one of you.
I was actually going to ask you guys that.
Some of it was in hurricane reserves, beautification, street improvements, conservation land acquisition was another big one. It was budgeted for, but it's in an odd place in the budget. So
Yeah, I was like,
it's
Sounds like it's our pocket change, and I just want to make
in
clear
Tim's
it's
perspective,
not.
it's a redundant CIP.
Okay,
My goal is for finance is to work with council to get very clear in terms of the CIP improvements that we want to make, invest in this fiscal year that are tied to the strategic plan. Because really, the strategic plan should be guiding our CIP in a big way, right?
right.
And then having that housed in one place rather than in different sections of the budget. It was also set up in a way where if we didn't approve improvement, we would have to come back to the council for an additional approval to use those funds. So those funds were really guarded by the council. So say if a property came up and it was a conservation land acquisition goal, we would then have to come back to you and say, hey, this is the proposal, this is what you have in the budget. Would you like to use funds from this section of the budget to go toward this project? And that would give council the ability to say yes or no.
Okay. I'm just confused, because when we had that situation come up, but it was never made clear that we actually had money set aside in the budget for things like that. That's okay, I think it can go away, but I have a question about street maintenance salaries. It's up 29%, or is that like, does that include like positions that were created mid-year? Maybe,
So what we want to do, we still have a analysis to make sure we review the position control report to make sure that there's no half or part-time people incorporated in that. If that's pure salary increases, it will be reverted back down to 4%. So there was talks last year, and if TJ's here, he could correct me, that there was an engineering position available, and it was prorated in the previous budget, and then it was kind of carried over. We want to make sure we do the proper analytics to make sure TJ has its resources. But I do want to add that the department in total is at the 10% threshold that we anticipated as far as the increase. So there was no egregious increase department-wide, but I do like to take a look at the individual items, and salaries was one of them. And so we want to make sure that we have that nice and polished by the time we have the workshop so that we can be able to explain any type of staffing resources that are necessary for that.
okay, and then I have one other question about, actually two other questions. So on the expenses, it had grants and aid listed as 98,000. Why are the grants expenses? I'm confused. Usually the grants are revenue, right? Like,
Yeah, it's
that's why I'm
posted,
confused.
it's posted on both sides, so it's a
Okay.
pass-through. So you have to have the expenses for the grant stipulated, and then you also have the grant revenue also stipulated on the revenue side.
Okay.
So it's
So they
represented in both
offset,
places. Yeah,
essentially.
it's represented
Gotcha.
in both places.
That makes more sense. I appreciate that. And then on the initial revenue screen, the fire and I think it was capital improvement project, have those takeouts been included in the number that was posted there?
So that's where the 3.9.
Or is that the separate?
So
Okay.
that's
That's
where the
what I wanted to
3.9
make sure it
says.
wasn't
So
included
That
and then-
3.9 will have to be used for that.
Gotcha.
And the remaining amount will be coming from reserves. I'm saying, okay, can we reduce it so we use zero reserves? That's where I was steering the discussion.
Awesome. Thank you. I just want to make sure I was understanding that correctly.
No, absolutely.
All right, I'm
absolutely.
good.
Vice Mayor?
Under the slide, I think it said opportunities for improvement with the police. Can you please tell me, there's a line item that says contra, and I wasn't able to write it fast enough. What is that contra something, something, something?
Oh, for the IT department.
I thought it was the police.
Yeah, it's contra, so what that is that's just really taking money in your right pocket, putting it in your left pocket. So we put an expense of $271,000 on the police's budget to subsidize the IT department, both of which are funded by the general fund. So it's really just putting money in your right pocket and in your left pocket. It artificially inflates the police budget by recognizing that expense. So when I recommend removing it, if I remove it, the IT department, I would hope will continue to support the police, but for conversation purposes, it doesn't do anything one way or the other. So why not recognize an absolute reduction in expenses and incorporate a payroll allocation plan in opposition to that, where there's real cash being transferred into the general fund? Whereas in that particular instance, that's not the case at all.
Okay, under street maintenance, repairs are up 126%. Why?
Say that one more time, Madam VP.
Under street maintenance, repairs are up by 126%. Why?
So I believe there was a big initiative to fix some of the repairs, and I don't know if TJ is here.
Morning, Vice Mayor, Mayor, Council. Talking about repair and maintenance, it's non-capitalized repairs. So we've been historically deficient. We're proposing a budget amount that will actually cover the various expenses we incur in the public right-of-way. And it's not just streets. It could be removal of trees. It could be signage. It could be filling potholes, fixing drainage. So all that's covered in the streets repair and maintenance budget.
Sidewalk repairs too, right?
Repairs, right. Not capital, where we're building new sidewalks, but repairing sidewalks.
We had these same items or services last year, right?
Yes.
Okay, so help me get an enhanced understanding. I still don't understand why it's up to 126%. Can you please help me understand?
We just budgeted realistically as far as what we're proposing, that these are the expenses we really should be incurring. If the budget's not there, the work doesn't happen. That's bottom line.
And last but not least, I want to talk about the contract services at, I believe, like $2.1 million. This has always been a sore spot for me. With the contracted services, has everyone sat down and said, this is something that we can or cannot live without? With the contracting services, am I giving this to you because you are a friend of my cousin's sister's son? Are you doing fair and balanced RFPs? I want to know more about how the contracting services are created, developed, and awarded. And Chris, I don't expect you to answer that. You just got on board. But somebody please tell me about these contracted services and the list that we have, because I'm sure that if we had a list of them, we could go down the paper and say, yay, nay, this is a nice to have. This is what is really needed. Somebody help a sister out, please.
Chris and I had a conversation yesterday in terms of evaluating, comparing our contract services investment to our personnel services. Not sure if we have that pie chart or bar graph prepared yet today, but our biggest contract services you have is Woodard and Curran, obviously out of the utility fund, separate fund. Then you have Wildan, which formerly was Alpha. That's tied to the building fund, not necessarily to the general. And then you also have the legal services is probably a third distant to both building and utilities. A lot of that is paid out of the general fund. Outside of that, that's mostly operating. Outside of that, it's usually an RFP that is through a competitive bid process for mostly CIPs or various projects that can't be done in-house, and that does go through procurement. And those are more contractual, non-reoccurring expenses.
I appreciate pie charts, any other kind of chart. But the devil's in the details. So what I would like to see is a list of all the contracted services we have. I'd like to know if there are small, large, woman-owned, service-disabled, veteran, small business. And I would also like to see the amount of each and every one of those contracts. I can't see it in a pie chart. And like I said, the devil's in the details, and that's what I would like to see. Thank you.
And I would like to offer, Vice Mayor and Council, if it
I'm
says...
sorry, I didn't hear you, TJ.
I would like to offer some additional information that I think will be helpful as we come back to you with more, is the questions you just asked. The answer is yes. There's all kinds of answers to this. We have multiple contracts. If it says contract services, there's a contract, which means the city council has been involved in approving that contract. So we can give you a list, but it ain't one thing. It's a whole bunch of different types of services. It might be engineering, it might be surveying, it might be legal, it might be financial. And yes, there are definitely utilities, stormwater contracts, all types of contracts. So I think it will be helpful to all of us in this room to see all that in one document, and it's not going to be a short document.
It's all good. I got more time than I got money, so it's all good. Thank you.
Mr. J. Cox?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you go back to the police salary slide that you had up there, or the whole thing? Okay. Do you have any reason, or do you understand why from 2025 to 2026 that went up $1 million compared to what you put in the budget? Now that's only going up by $385,000. It went up more than $1 million between those two. Was it because they increased staff, or did they just increase salaries that much?
I believe there was a staff increase. Chief Ramsey, are you here?
I'm trying to figure out the difference between 2025 and 2026 on police salaries. It's $1 million. It's more than $1 million. Was that increased staffing, or was that a raise or something?
I would have to review the 2025 budget to give you that information specifically. I'm not prepared to answer that.
Okay, can you figure that out and bring that information back to us? Because that is a big increase, and I want to make sure it's because of
Understood.
increased personnel.
Understood. I believe there were some ARPA funds that were in that as well, but I'll take a look at that.
Okay. Now, the reason why I asked that is because you came up with a new number that is a lot less than what the number was in 2026.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Okay.
Just a few thoughts around that, just to share with the council. So one of the things that we want to figure out between now and the August 25th is, if you look at the consumer price index, inflation's been about 3.5%. Is that right, Chris and Mike? Fire, through their union contract, is guaranteed a 4% increase, cost of living increase. We looked at both police requesting a 7%, general fund. Made sense to look at it across the board for now, 4%. We're also evaluating a performance increase that would be partnered with this cost of living increase. So we're still looking at some of those numbers, but this would give essentially each department director a pot of funds where they would, through an annual performance review, base that increase on performance rather than just a standard fixed rate. This is something we have not done in previous years. We haven't done annual performance reviews. I think could be good for merit. It could be good for succession planning, growing our staff from within, and giving sort of a carrot for good performance and good follow through. But instead of just looking at just a carte blanche, one standard increase for everyone, that's something that we're trying to shift away from.
Can you go back to the slide with the surplus? No, that's the total revenue one. It's one that where you actually list a surplus. Yes, that one. Okay. Is that still there, based on all your numbers?
Yes.
Okay.
So the things that we're proposing will only increase that number.
Right.
That's the bottom at 3.9.
Okay. So the last slide we were looking at were increases, and they subtract from the surplus.
Correct. So the $5 million in capital, proposed capital projects and the fire subsidy is coming from that number.
Okay. And what else is left over after you take those two out?
Will come from reserves.
Will come from reserves.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank
So
you. That's all I have at this
Okay.
time.
That's one of our goals for finding some additional savings. Obviously, not only just for this coming fiscal year, but potentially if the property tax reduction does go into effect, we want to be able to make some adjustments now rather than waiting.
Stephen?
No questions.
Thank you. Just a few questions, and for you, Mr. Maslow, to start with. How do we do the budget before we set the millage rate cap? I mean, it would seem, I've never done one where, and I'm not saying that I know anything, but usually we have a projected amount of income, and we say this is what it is, and every department has to make sure that they come in under that, and we don't really, in a lot of cases, don't tell them where it has to go. They just have to come in under that. And so I think the formatting is of how we're doing this, I think is maybe a little off, because we could be asking for a lot of stuff, but it's not going to go up, It's, we're not going to manufacture money, so we need to let everybody know exactly where we are. Along those lines, as we move forward, are we going to get the budget book like we did last year?
You will. That will be emailed out. That's a lot of detail, line by line, that Chris does have along with Mike. We'll send that out probably within, how many days are you expecting, Chris?
I think usually 10 from the 25th.
Okay, we want to send it out with, I would say, substantial time between the email and the August 25th workshop.
Oh, you're saying a draft? Okay, yeah, sorry.
Just give us enough time. Last year, we were a little bit close.
Yeah, our goal is, you might recall, I think it was the second reading, we were going line by line. Our goal is by the time September hits, at that August 25th, everybody is really clear line by line in terms of where we're going to be. And again, protecting the city's margin and making sure that we're structurally balanced. Couple other things that you'll see in that is our reporting to making sure that you see where we're at this year in terms of actual spent versus budgeted. That should give you a good idea in terms of what next year's performance should be. And some of those other changes that we looked at, some of the reallocations. I've talked with Chris, just again, in light of the property tax issue, I'm very hesitant on adding any FTEs that require any funding whatsoever from the general fund right now. So our goal is to make sure that that's tied, any new FTEs is tied to the utility fund or building fund. So there's still quite a room for improvement between now and the 25th. One of the other things to be aware of, I think our increase in terms of not necessarily the millage rate, that's staying static at the 5.7. That's what all the math is generated from, is that 5.7 millage rate. But we're looking at about a 14% increase in revenue across the board this year. So our goal is for each department to have below a 10% increase, to still have some padding in between those.
That would be an increase even though their stuff from last year that they put in is already done. And
Correct.
their increase
Yeah.
on top of,
Yeah.
I would keep it even and figure it out, if it's beyond, because we should have finished projects and start up other ones rather than just keep increasing. That would be my input on that. We have an 8% value increase on the housing, right? So really, the citizens are going to pay 8% more than they did last year if the millage rate is the same.
Correct.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought that the state says that, or should we just say it's the same tax rate? We can't, even if we keep it the same, say it's the same as last year, right? We would have to reduce it by 8%. Last year, those millage rates would have to go down in order to keep the tax the same, correct?
Yeah, you'd have to reduce the 5.7 down to, we could do that math. The rollback. To figure out what that equivalent millage rate would be for the 8%.
As we get into the discussion, because I'm sure that's going to come when we get into budgets from the citizens, we need to know what that number is, and I think our staff needs to know what that number is in order to keep budgeting like zero-based. And zero-based is a really, I guess, can be interpreted different ways. I was told we used to do it, but I think zero-based is starting out with zero and then saying what you need rather than adding on or not adding on a particular line. So I think zero-based would be something, if you can't do the whole thing, if we can take a department and zero in on a department or two departments this year and two departments next year, it might be a way that you can accomplish that. The maintenance, I was glad to see the maintenance in there moving up. But I would also go back to one of our previous conversations, I believe, is until we get the roads and the grass and the buildings painted and all that, I think there's going to be a hard time putting new expansion down. We took on last year infrastructure and getting things right, and so I see some monies in there for expansion. I'd really like to see us get things right before we take on anything else for that. Total compensation, is the labor total compensation inclusive of everything? You had a slide that said labor.
Yes, are you referring to the payroll allocation slide? Yes, that's all in, so that includes all fringe benefits and salary.
And what was that? It was 1.4 million or something like that?
Yes, sir, 1.3. That's based on the current proposal. There's likely going to be additional individuals' positions added to that, but at the initial proposal rate, or the initial proposed positions, we're at 1.3 right now.
And that's, how many employees do we have, team members?
I did it by department. I didn't do it by the number of employees, so I don't want to misquote it, Mr. Mayor.
We're looking at 182 plus 6 new firefighters. There were a couple of new positions looked at. One is the deputy department director for utilities. That's going to be paid out of the utility fund and not the city's general fund. There's a couple other positions that were tied to the general that we're still reevaluating.
Just trying to get a ballpark of what.
I actually have that here, sorry. I actually have that. So total 189. There's 17.5 in finance, 7.5 in.
We go into detail. I just needed the 189.
Oh, okay.
Because for the 1.3 million, I just want to have that, because we're going to come back to that later. We don't need to get into the detail right now. Are we able to, I ask our city attorney, are we able to take another look at the fringe benefit for our executive level, where we're given an automatic 8% into the retirement plus another match of 6%, so 14% which is very, very high. And I'm not saying that we need to look at it for our current people, but as we bring on new executives, we should be looking at that because it's from what I've talked to other people, and I'm sure you have too, it's way, way out of line. And what that 8% could help with is your bonus situation. Because right now, it's not tied to any performance level, it's an automatic. And the 8% is full and not a match, maybe needs to be looked at, and you come back. Budget review. It would be very helpful on your previous slides to make sure when we're doing by department that we have previous year in those as well. And can we please, Mr. Maslow, with all departments, put page numbers on these slides so we can just refer, it would make it a lot easier if I can say go to 5 or 6 or 7 or 8, because I can't remember which ones they were on.
Of course, yes.
Can you go to the slide that had the settlements in it? It was 75,000 in settlements. I think it was how many lawsuits we had settled or whatever. Is that it? Judgments, fines, and forfeits. That strikes me as being a little off because I think we all remember we had to vote a $250,000 payout to settle the case since we've been on this year. That was the one where we didn't pay and we took people to court and then we had to settle it. But I'm wondering where that 250 grand is because that was in this fiscal year.
This is revenue.
Insurance.
Huh? Insurance didn't pay for it. We had to pay for it out of the general fund.
That was a revenue slide.
That was a
Were you
revenue
referring to another slide, Mr. Mayor?
That was 75,000 that we got.
Oh, we got, where's the,
Yeah,
do
that
we
would have
have
been an
one on?
expense.
Yeah, do we have that on how much we've paid out this year in lawsuits?
I don't have that separated on the expense side of things yet, but I can make sure I separate that.
It would be a great thing to say, let's do better, you know, if it's 500 this year, maybe 400, maybe 300, we could see an improvement, you know.
We could look at that.
Total labor. The definition of strategic initiatives is very puzzling to me. It seems like it could be questioned if we don't, as a council, have different areas in that. People will say you're just hoarding money and it should be out benefiting, I'm paying taxes, this should be out fixing my road, fixing a pothole, fixing this and that. How do we solve that issue about having just it almost sounds like a slush fund right now?
So I would add that Mr. Maslow is adamant about rolling out the dashboard that we've developed to start charting a lot of these projects. From the city council perspective, helping us prioritize these items would be beneficial too. That way we can actually, put a price on what needs to be done first, and we can actually adequately project the spend and properly communicate expectations upon completion.
Okay, so Mr. Maslow, I would, the reason I brought that up is I saw, once again, our conservation numbers. And saying the strategic plan wants to go out and buy a bunch of land. We need to, put it on an agenda to really talk about that. Money, and I think we've talked about it before, money is better spent using the Family Farm or Family Conservation Act, where we could match funds with the state, thereby keeping things in conservation that we don't have to add employees to. Our whole goal is to keep the farms, keep the conservation. $700,000 or $2 million would go a long way to getting a lot of land conserved and then we wouldn't have to take care of the land. So I would really like to bring that back to council to have a serious discussion about that, which would come up in this year. On the different departments, can you go to any department here?
So I actually went through all of the departments, and, like I say, the goal was to make sure that everybody remained department-wide under a 10% increase total. So the ones that I presented to you guys today in the slide were more egregious to different regards, and so that's why I kind of pulled out those items.
No, I wasn't even going there.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to just see a slide of a department. Any department, doesn't matter.
I thought it, let's see.
Okay, is that okay, any department. Okay, it's one department, I'm an equal department.
Okay, I'll make sure I go
Where I don't know what this is, but when I look at the department details, I'm not seeing that department's capital in there. Director is responsible for the amount of money that's spent, including capital, and that should go, everything they're responsible for, in my opinion, should go in that business unit. We have, that makes sense for wanting people to start funding depreciation so they don't get hit. That makes a lot of sense when people are trying to do business, that all of that is within their, that's what they're responsible for. It should be in their business unit, right? And we know that sometimes you have to take a loan and we'll put the loan payment in, but I would really like to see that everybody, these business units are totally consolidated.
Yeah, that's one of the proposed changes I was having coming down the line. I kind of wanted to present, I'm kind of coming in a substitute capacity, but typically how a budget is designed and how I've typically designed them, each department will have its personnel expense allocation, its operational expenses, and its individual capital projects, capital outlay. And that's laid out per department, so that way we can see how it translates for each department.
I love you to death. Thank you so much for that. And then lastly, I don't see a line anywhere, and I'd like to see a line, whether total or by department, to fund training. We've talked about that a lot. I mean, I've never worked in a company that didn't have a certain percentage as funding training and making sure that we talk about succession planning, we talk about merit increases, we talk about all this stuff. Without, if somebody's not quite on target or you're trying to get them ready for the next, we have to have training. And when we talk about, maybe some departments going down and some going up, I've always been able to cross-utilize or train people and recast them. We've had that, recast them in a different role where they can stay within a company and keep progressing. But we've talked about this a lot. We really have to define training, because at the end of the year, if there's money left in the training budget for each department, we need to ask why the money's left in there, because everybody needs training. And that is a really strong point with me, and I hope for the council is that we can budget that as a line item.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, training is a line in each department. So what I could task Chris and Mike to work on is just one slide to share with you all as just a composite for by department, each department's allocation toward training, total amount. And then we could add that all up as an aggregate and show what percentage of all city funds are going to training. That will give us an idea of, what's being used, what's allocated, and if that's a proper percentage, if that's something we should likely increase.
And then on the building forecast, what is that? How many buildings are next year? We're taking a hit on the number of houses that are going to starting?
Yeah, our numbers are a little bit more conservative. We might need that other slideshow that you worked on, Chris, unless you have it up there. There you go. Building permit fees. So that is a pretty significant reduction. Typically, we've averaged between 400 to 500 new homes per year. That's gone down a little bit, closer to about 350. I'd have to double check the math, unless you know off the top of your head, Chris, in terms of how many new housing starts and commercial starts that would equate to.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we're going to hit the 2.1. We'll be almost there, just due to economic downturn. So that's another reason why we projected lower. I think it's good to remember that the equivalent expense will also be prorated, so we don't foresee it being a burden on the general fund at all. It will all get adjusted in a prorated fashion. So if it turns out to be better and we go 2.5 next year, it'll all work out the same, and it'll just be better for the city as a whole.
Well, I'm just looking at the domino effect, because we're going to be talking to utilities before long, and everything. We have a concurrency plan, we have a comp plan, we have the number of houses started, it affects the number of labor we have, the amount of labor in our police department, because we are bound. We can't just say we're not going to add anybody. We're bound to that minimum that's in that concurrency plan. And so if we have this many houses, we've got to say that this is what we're going to have in the plan. And I'd like to marry it up with the utility side, because when we're forecasting the need for new wastewater treatment plants and when they need to come on board, that number is very, very important. And so it's the domino effect to get that in line, because we could be jumping on a gun that we don't need to jump on right now, or vice versa. But whatever you do to get, and I appreciate you, I don't want it to be too conservative and I don't want it to be too over the top, but I need it to be just right. It's because there's so many things that depend on that forecast.
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor. And what I will do is I'll work with Mr. Maslow and his team to provide some additional analytics to back that permanent revenue number, to be able to talk about it more illustrative the next time I come before you guys.
Okay, and then the last thing I have is, are we going to start planning, or what are we going to do for all the small businesses on Lake Avenue and on Orange and Broad when we dig them up? We've got a lot of people that we've got in, and they're going to have a downturn in business. And I know that there's probably state funds or stuff, but do we have to start planning? Are we going to help the businesses to stay intact, or what are we going to do about that?
Great conversation for the CRA, not to kick the can necessarily, but there is going to be a significant impact with all the construction happening down there for really over the course of the next 2 years. I've tasked TJ with bringing FDOT representatives to come in to present to not only senior staff, but then council, to give you a better idea of the MOT, what roads are going to be closed down, where everything's going to be placed. If there is a monetary incentive or more of support through staff, that's likely going to be paid for out of the CRA. And I know Frank and Noah are looking for some ideas for to at least communicate with the businesses. Here's what to expect. If there's any monetary relief, that's going to have to be a conversation with the CRA board.
I'm bringing it up for the general because I know how much money's in the CRA, and I know what hit you got coming, and I don't know that there'll be that kind of money there to do that.
You could also look at, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's this takes into account the 1.46 Kroger funds that we've already received. There's 2 other funding sources we anticipate later this fiscal year, / early next fiscal year. One is about $800,000 from Ocado that's due to the city by the 31st of this month. So we'll verify when that hits. The other is about $1 million or a little less than $1 million for right-of-way acquisition from FDOT. So there is a pot of additional funds above and beyond what you saw today that could be, allocated for different things. We've talked about the train depot, $500,000 coming from that. Assessments, audits for each department for organizational improvements. But then you could also look at downtown business relief.
And then I'm going to look at somebody, but I'm not talking to that person. I'm talking to you. Are we going to get modeling on what happens with or without this tax issue and how it relates to our debt? I mean, we got 10%. We don't have 10% debt if we lose $3 million next year. We don't have it if we lose $6 million the following year. It will diminish, I believe, and be bankrupt in 3 years or 4 years. And I just want to make sure that we have that modeling done. And I know we have expertise around that can do that, but I think we all have to understand right now, because every step we take right now can push that issue back. And
right, yeah, we don't want to dig ourselves a bigger hole with this fiscal year. So that's the message that I've given all department directors and certainly Chris and Mike. Mike does have a draft. He's still reviewing that with Chris since he just started last week. It's a 5-year forecast with 2 scenarios. One scenario is status quo, no change to the property tax. Say there's a less than 60% approval rate. What does that do for the city's reserves? What does that do for our structural versus non-structural balance? And then what does that do to that 6% debt service to revenue ratio? The other scenario will be, say, if the property tax impact does happen, and we're ballparking about $3.5 million in fiscal year 28, north of $6 million in fiscal year 29, what does it do to all those ratios, those benchmarks that we're tracking? That is expected. When can you, do we have a date in mind for council that we could give them a certain expectation? Okay.
That would be good, very, very good, and it's a maximum minimum, and we know that, like, our representatives have said that we'll end up somewhere in between, because even if the tax does go through, they'll help us out a little bit from the state, but we need to know what those 2 guardrails are, so we really know what we've got to ask for. You know, without those, we don't know what we've got to ask for. So, appreciate that. Thank you. Any other questions?
Mr. Mayor, can I circle around based on the conversation, just jog my memory a little bit?
That's what any more questions means.
I'm pretty sure I heard you said there was going to be a freeze on FTE.
That's my goal, was if there's a new FTE tied to the general fund, I just don't feel comfortable, given the question marks that we're dealing with between now and November, to add any more reoccurring expenses to the city's budget right now.
Okay. So
Can I just build on that? In personal opinion, FTEs are of no use. It's labor cost. You know, you can have 10 people making $1 million, you can have 100 people making 100,000. It's what revenues are we absorbing, what is going on to the city. And personally, if you don't increase that labor cost, you can have as many people as you want in there. The FTEs has got us into trouble, in my opinion. That's why we took people and put them in building. We got an outside so we could move FTEs out, so we could move somebody else in. We put all these people over in wastewater treatment. We shut that down, you know, so it didn't show up on our FTE, but we're still paying another company to then pay them, and another company to just pay them. And that's how we got in this big consulting contract thing. It needs to come down to labor cost. We just have to manage our labor cost. And for the amount of money that building permitting takes out, you know, a couple $1 million, I'm sure we could have our building people back, and it would be a better solution for our citizens.
So I'm going to expand on that, if it's okay, Mr. Mayor, because you're exactly right, and that goes back with the Vice Mayor's request to compare contracted services to in-house personnel. So just theoretically, the game plan is to reallocate, and I think Chris shared about $1.3 million in terms of savings to the general fund just by reallocating certain personnel more to building and utilities. The next step really is Wildan and Alpha, their contract with building expires in fiscal year 28. That would give us next year to evaluate if we did in-house and hire our own chief building official, bring back our permitting techs, and then our plans reviewers and inspectors. What's the total cost of that? How realistic is it to hire all those personnel within a given year? And is there a margin that the city can expect to see in terms of what we're paying in the Alpha Wildan contract compared to in-housing? And then that margin would give you additional flexibility to use in other areas of the city where we do need improvements that we don't have enough allocation for. The same concept would be looked at for Wood and Curran. Their contract isn't expiring until, I think, 2031, 2032. TJ's nodding. That gives us a little bit more time. It's a much bigger animal than building. That's the biggest contracted services. That gives us, again, another year in anticipation of a potential impact on property taxes to evaluate areas of the city where we could still keep our levels of service, keep quality, but look at in-housing to protect the city's margin.
Or even if it stays the same, improve service, because I got to say, I don't know what the other council can chime in. I'm tired. I'm tired of everybody saying Groveland is doing this, and Groveland is holding up permits, and Groveland has got brown water, and Groveland's got this and that, when it's contractors. And it's our brand that continues to be run through the ringer, and we have other people controlling our brand, and we've got to stop it. Because if we're going to take the hit, we need to be running it, you know? So to me, it's not the big margin and it's not the big finance. It's we've got to be in control of our brand, and the biggest hits that I get right now, permitting and water, you know, on a consistent basis. So we've got to get that straightened out.
I have another question real quick if we have time. Completely off that topic though, so. The police salary thing, between 4%, 7%, do we have a comparison between how much our officers make compared to surrounding areas, or can we get that?
I could get that from Dia. I know we shared that with council before.
Yeah,
We probably
I
have
know,
to
it kinda-
brush that up. I
it
think we shared
changes
it
yearly,
last
so-
year. I want to say we might not be the highest, but we're definitely not the lowest. So we can look at that.
Okay.
And that's also where that performance increase comes in hand. So say if police felt very passionate where they did want to get more competitive compared to other police departments, it would be based more on performance rather than just across the board increase, sort of like our cost of living increase. But we could provide that analysis through HR to council.
Okay,
And we're
thank you.
restricted, right? Because we have some unions. I mean, some. you
There's
can't-
not a union right now with police.
Fire?
There's conversations about
Fire has a
potentially
union,
unionizing.
right? So that merit couldn't help them at all, right? Okay.
Thank you.
All right, Chris, how much is in the city reserve right now?
One more time, sir.
The city reserve?
City reserves, at the
Yeah.
end of the fiscal, we were at 14.2, and we're projected to be right around there, 14.2 to 15 million this year as well.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, since you brought up the millage rate, do you know what the actual millage rate is? And not just the publicized millage rate? The actual millage rate would be adding in the outside fire. So it's actually 6.69.
It's 6 points for fire. So that would be, 6.3, 6.3.
So it's somewhere over, closer to the 6.69. I think we need to keep ourselves aware of what the actual one is. And then there's something else that's floating around. Mineola had a workshop, and in that workshop, they presented a study where they came up with a way to put impact fees on fire and police based on adding new personnel and new equipment per each home based on the impact of personnel. And I think that's something that we need to look at, because it sounded very feasible, and they broke out all the laws that allowed them to do it. And there was one other thing connected to it, but I forget what it was. It was mainly police and fire, though. So if you had to buy another police car.
I can
we
actually
do that?
speak to that because I actually did the impact fee survey there. Police and fire was always part of it, and we actually increased the impact fees in general. But that was always a component of the city's impact fee structure. So if that's not a part of it here, that's definitely another opportunity area that would be worth pursuing.
We do
I'm sorry, I
have it.
forgot that's where you came
We
from.
do have police and fire impact fees. That's not to pay for operating costs. It's
Right.
more to keep up with growth. And then just as a friendly reminder, Aftilis is not only doing the reevaluation of the utility rates and impact fees, they've also been reevaluating all of our impact fees for police and fire included. So that analysis is coming to council in August, and we'll take action on that. And just a little a bit of anticipation, we're looking at maxing out those impact fees as high as we could legally go to, again, make sure growth is paying for growth.
Are you also going to take the mayor's suggestion about increasing it on two-bedroom apartments to be like a house instead of being half of what it is now?
We're evaluating the difference between multifamily, 2 bedrooms and up versus 1 bedroom / studios.
Okay.
Yeah.
Different topic, but going off of what the mayor said earlier on the projects and the projects that are underway or have been underway and then the ones that we're starting, just making sure we're reminding ourselves that next year could literally be the Wild West of what our revenues look like. So taking this year to really finish every project possible and then starting projects that we feel like we have a good likelihood of finishing within the year, because I'd be really scared to get into a bunch of new projects and then halfway through we're figuring out how to get out of it because we no longer have the revenue coming in. So just echoing that one point.
Thank you.
A couple other things to bring up. Mr. Walker from the Parks Department, he does have a few slides to go over with you all that's really coming back based on what we heard at the last workshop on the CIP side on parks improvements and looking at this year versus next year and sort of reevaluating that, along with events. So, Mike, is now a good time that you want to share your slides and tackle those topics?
And Mr. Maslow, Mayor, I just stepped back up here for a minute while Mike comes up. You made a comment earlier, and I'm going to urge the council to consider something as we look at this ad valorem issue. What I heard was concerns about debt and revenues, and it's all tied to ad valorem. Well, now more than ever, it's important to look at your enterprise fund in a whole new way and not lump all city debt. Enterprise fund debt is different than general obligation debt. And so a lot of these positions and how we're going to pay for personnel, we're already committed to being as creative as we can to show any connection to our enterprise, including what other enterprises should be considered, such as building services or sanitation or stormwater. So I just want to mention that that's all part of the conversations that your staff is having to help you make the best decisions.
Yeah, you're doing a great job on that. I just wanted to make sure that we had the right building count, because your whole graphs are based on a different count, and everything will trickle down, and Ref Tellis is doing that right now. That count is so important to that study. It's because otherwise we'll get it and it will be way off again. So that has to be married together.
Good morning. Also, before I get started, I'd like to have Miss Linda Cowles, Dr. Linda Cowles, the Recreation Advisory Committee Chairwoman, join me. I know council has, did she leave?
He's behind you.
Council has, in the past, asked for the RAC committee to come give a little presentation. So after I go through some slides, we'll see what Miss Linda throws out at us.
Thank you for being here, Chairwoman. Thank you.
Thank you. So, the short little presentation that was put together was just if needed. So Mr. Maslow obviously thought it was important to discuss. A lot of your events are in the general fund budget. And I just wanted to go through current year and propose next year just for everyone to get an understanding of how we budget and what allows us to do the magic that both Stephen and Francesca, who are here as well, do throughout the year for our community. And then Miss Linda can talk about the conversations we've had at the last couple month meetings as far as discussions on RAC, on how we do better, what direction we should recommend to council. So let me just go ahead and get started. 2026 calendar of events, which is posted on our website. The RAC, Recreation Advisory Committee, touches this document every year. And then, how that has been transpired to city council in the past, I believe, is through city manager sharing with the council members. So very detailed events that we offer. You have it in front of you. So, Second Fridays and, Founders Day, Memorial Day events. So you can see the number of events each month that we put on. And, whoa, wrong way. Maybe not. Sorry. This is a budget document from our current year, fiscal year 26 that we are in. So the description is detailed. You can see the second Friday monthly events are listed, and that's $50,000. And I think we've done 10 a month this current year. And let me pause on that. We were gonna do 10. Then the next line, you see the minus $10,000. Council asked us to make some cuts last year, or this current year, so that was a $10,000 reduction. We reached out to another entity that we felt was going to attempt to take on 2 of the second Fridays from us and host those at Cherry Lake. After we made that reduction per council request going into this year's budget, the entity misunderstood the conversation that I had, that they needed to raise the funds to host the event. It wasn't going to be city will, give you funding to put the event on for us, because that just doesn't pass the smell test. So we took those 2 events on, even though we reduced $10,000, and we did our magic going through the year. You can see the breakdown then with the back-to-school event, backpack event that we just had this past weekend, your Founder's Day Festival, budget cost, your July 4th, and then winter holiday is your tree lighting and Christmas parade. Another line item that is separated for us is the summer programming, which is your outsourced partnership that you support local summer camp instead of city staff not having the manpower to do that. That's the EYP, Empowering Young People partnership. $15,000 for them to run the summer program at a reduced rate for residents. And then your Wacky Wednesday, seven Wacky Wednesdays, $2,000 an event, $14,000. This is your breakdown. I kudos to our team. We do a very good breakdown after every event. When we had the bi-weekly reports that city manager department would send to council, you would have a breakdown of all the revenues and expenses sheets from every event and every program. So here, I think these numbers are powerful and makes, it's knowledgeable, education. So, I mean, from October going down to current, you have in front of you the total that event cost. You have the budget allocation, and then you have, how we did at the end of the day. Did we make our budget? Did we fall under, or did we succeed? And then the far right column, you have the revenues. The first 4 months was the old rate structure for our vendor fees, and then we increased from $10 to $25 for vendor spots. So I think it's important to, your block parties, we budgeted $5,000 as the previous slide. Let me see if I can, just so you can understand. As that previous slide states, second Friday and monthly holidays. What does that mean? Well, that means your second Friday events, and then if there was a holiday, we tried to do our best over the last few years to compile, make it work with the $5,000 monthly allocated in our mind. Our outside the box second Friday events have grown, which has increased the budget for those. So that's why you're seeing the red in some of those columns where we failed. Not gonna hide, but I will also give kudos to the teams where we failed. At the end of the day, we're gonna be within budget. So as we go into our last month of September, next month, I think we have like a $2,500 cushion with one more second Friday, and we're gonna do our best to make that $2,500 work. Just praising the team once again. Last year's budget, I think we had $131,000 for events, and I think we missed the dot by $131. Yay to the team, because that's a lot of events to miss the bullseye by $131. So as you go through these, you can, I think it's important, Dia de los Muertos in November, 2,600. That used to be a smaller event. We did something small, a movie night, but it just keeps growing and it's building. Our December events have always been wonderful, huge attendance with the parade. So, you know, we're a little short there. The block party, MLK breakfast, you see the numbers. February, Lunar New Year event was part of our second Friday, along with a Black History Month movie. And we will improve on that and as far as celebrating Black History Month with our second Friday, other than letting an outside party come in and partner with us in that month. Founders Day, we were under budget. Easter events, block party, Arbor Day, not, you know, over. But I don't have to go line item by line item. You can see we're pretty spot on. We're hit or miss. But I do want to say, these numbers in front of you for the expenses include personnel expenses. So when we have an event budget of $125,000 in our event line, that's for the event. The numbers you are seeing, vast staff after every event, to try to capture that overtime cost, because we do have a small team. Let's be honest here. The folks that are pulling the weeds, cleaning the 25 restrooms, and mowing the 60 acres, they're also doing the event. So we can't say, hey, flex out your Monday, Tuesday, because you're working Friday night and Saturday. It doesn't happen. So we do have an overtime budget of $20,000. So personnel expenses are in here. And from my calculation yesterday, that comes to $12,881, and still got one more month to go. So take $12,881 off of the difference there. We're within that $3,000 range that I mentioned earlier. That'll make it up next month, and we'll make it work. Going into 2027, calendar events that has been discussed the last two Recreation Advisory Committee meetings in detail, that what is being presented to you has been presented to them in length. So 2027, it was a recommendation from the RAC because of, not because of the number of events. I've explained the humans that do the work, the number of humans that do the work. And then if we're and we're also sprinkling in some athletic recreation programming. With started fall baseball last year, started fall soccer. You know, we've been running a successful basketball program at Hope International, Nathaniel Community Gymnasium for the last 5 years, up to 145 children. So the recommendation was keep everything the same for 2027, except reduce 4 second Fridays. So the recommendation from the Recreation Advisory Committee to the RAC is to reduce the second Fridays, taking out, taking out, I believe, January, anyone that didn't have any second Friday that we couldn't partner with a monthly event. So we're moving January, April, May, and October. That's the recommendation from the RAC, is reducing 4 second Fridays. This then is your budget description for current proposed budget going forward. So this was turned into the finance department probably back in March or April. We did better. We detailed. We worked off of last year's post-event reports. We identified those individual holiday events, separate them out from the second Friday, and you can see that breakdown in front of you. The second line item, which has the second Friday block parties, still has those 4 block parties that the RAC recommends reducing. So if that's something council would like to do as we move forward through this process, that number would be reduced by $20,000. So in front of you is the recommended budget, just showing you a breakdown of all the events that we will touch next year and reducing that one line item if desired. Just giving a quick overview, I possibly may have presented this before. This is last fall soccer program, just showing the difference between special events as not really an opportunity in the special event world to capture revenue. You saw we did a little bit. I think we brought in 21,000 compared to the expense of the 125 budgeted. But if you look at the youth programs, you have a surplus of 2,300 after a youth soccer program, with revenues of 5,600, and this comes from team sponsors. You had 8 teams, $350 from local businesses to put their team name on the front of the jersey, 52 children, their registration fee. So, and there's your expenses for running the program. Some trophies at the end of the year, even though some people, hate, hey, win or lose, you get a trophy. Well, it's chasing butterflies. Jerseys and shorts, uniforms, and goals. Some of these costs are first, one-time expenses because of starting a program. Going into your youth basketball program, $4,900 surplus after expenses are paid. So once again, the youth programs, the athletic programs are an opportunity to capture some revenues. Adult basketball, same thing, not as much, because you're not going to have those league sponsors, those business sponsoring those adult leagues. We can, but usually that's not the case in the adult league. So you have 8 teams that pay their registration fee, and then your referees and your basketballs and T-shirt championship shirt awards are your expenses. Youth T-ball program last year, you have just under $1,000 in revenues over expenses. So once again, the youth programs you can capture more. I will touch our registration fees of $75 is low. So the norm is $125, $140, $150 per child. And if that's a route that we're going to go, if we're going to remain in the business of athletic programming with the new park, South Lake Regional Park, and the RAC recommendation is that we do offer the programming in-house at this time until we find a solid partner that believes and drinks the same Kool-Aid, that recreational opportunity is what needs to be provided and not the travel, the elite, those who have the skill set, those who have the deep pockets that can play only. So once we find that partner, we can transition to a partnership and have a youth sports provider, or as I believe I've mentioned to y'all before, is possibly creating a 501c3 of our own, that the city has at least a seat at the table to guide that ship moving forward. Because I think you're at a ground level opportunity with this park, and with my experience and my opinion, that would be the best thing to do, is we have a seat at the table of a nonprofit and have a board, built amongst those in soccer, baseball, softball to provide the programming. So that's all I have. Don't know if you have any questions there. If you like let Miss Linda give a chairperson from the RAC committee input, and then we'll answer all questions. Thank you.
Okay, doctor, put your seatbelt on. Okay, Mr. J. Cox.
Mike, are you suggesting bringing leagues in to pay for the other programs?
Ask that one more time, I'm sorry.
Are you suggesting or thinking about bringing in league play to South Lake Park to pay for the other programs?
Currently, my presentation was stating that we would run the in-house program, so we are currently accepting registrations for a fall baseball, fall girls softball program. We have a lease, a rental in place for soccer. You've had a couple individuals come to city council meetings talking about how they'd like to bring youth soccer to South Lake Regional. So they have reserved the fields for the next 4 months. That'll start this coming Monday. So we're sprinkling a little bit of both. We want to offer in-house programming for youth baseball, softball, and we will do a soccer program in the fall. We are also open for reserving fields for those when fields are available. And we also, I believe, in 2026, we have 2 or 3 weekends? Three? We have 3 weekends booked already for a travel softball tournament, and we have a number of weekends in 2027 reserved for weekend tournaments. So across the board with everything. Those weekend tournaments, your fee schedule that you approved a few months ago for a tournament to be hosted there is $500 per field per day. You have 4 youth baseball fields, you have 4 youth softball fields, and you have 2 multi-purpose field soccer fields that also include a cricket field. So $500 per field, per day, per sport, whatever they use. So a baseball or a softball tournament, your revenues would be around $2,000 per complex per day. So a weekend tournament could bring in $4,000. There is going to be expenses, and I think Ms. Linda will probably talk about some of the Recreation Advisory Committee's comments on that, because some of these weekend tournaments will rely on the same city staff, the same landscape people, the same restroom folks, the same city special event folks, signing up for overtime for working these events with trash removal. Most of the time, the fields in between games need to be dragged with equipment for smooth playing service. Sometimes those fields need to be re-chalked, chalking the clay with the lines and the batter boxes after each game. So the weekend tournaments aren't the challenge. You also have something that's been proposed to us, the spring games, which has, I think, been in, and Ms. Linda's going to talk about this too. I'm not taking her thunder. I'm just giving a summary so she can fill in. The spring games has requested use of our facility as well for the 4 softball fields. It's been in Lake County, I think, for 18, 19 years. Huge economic impact driver. Hotels, you got northern teams, collegiate girls softball teams coming down out of the cold weather in the month of March to play. They use a number of fields in Lake County and Polk County. So they would like to utilize our field, and they've requested the dates of March 1st to March 15th, 15 straight days, starting at 8 a.m., ending at 6 p.m., that we would have to staff that, line the fields, remove the trash, do the restroom, and they're asking for a fee reduction. So I have sent the information to Mr. Maslow to share with you at the right opportunity. If we're in the business of reducing fees, the RAC, it was mentioned at the last meeting, so here to give that recommendation. They did not see an interest in reducing the fees nor in hosting the event our first year until staff can get a feel and build up to that program, because 15 straight days, all day is tough. I hope I answered your question.
A little bit.
Okay.
The fees you're charging are paying for all the maintenance on the fields plus, correct?
The $2,000 a day would cover the expenses. I have also, in your fee schedule, it also has staff hours, a minimum for $60 per hour to have a staff person there. So I think in the fee, for the tournament fee, one person should be allocated under that fee to cover that. If additional is needed per department request, or if law enforcement is needed for any reason, if they request to have officers there, those would be additional expenses. But yes, the tournament fee will cover the expenses for a staff person to be there throughout that tournament. And if there's any lights needed, evening play, there is also a tournament light fee that would be added on to that.
Okay, when you're setting up the fee, you're sitting there saying the expenses are X, and you're doubling the expenses and saying that's the fee, right? Something like that?
Yes.
Okay.
And we're being consistent with fees in the area. We are on the high side. We've been told that, but I don't have concerns with that.
When you said that you signed up for a tournament for 15 straight days, that's going to be very, very hard on the turf over there, isn't it? So there's going to be a lot more expenses in turf replacement and stuff like that after 15 days. You can't even water it, really, right?
Hence the reason the Recreation Advisory Committee has advised or recommended for City Council to allow staff to deny the tournament request this year and give us a year to experience what the wear and tear from normal and other activities will have on the turf. But you are spot on, yes, sir.
Okay. Thanks. That's all I have.
Councilman Chakowski?
Question, if we could go back to the expenses for the events?
I will have page numbers next time. For 2027?
2026.
Oh,
Yep.
the complete one, yes, sir.
You just passed,
Yes.
go up, yep, that one. So do we track like the estimated attendance of each one?
After an event, we can ballpark it. Do we have a tracking mechanism of other? No, sir.
So, and it would take, 1 year we may have it rain and, the attendance would change a lot. But does it kind of track, in your experience, that we're spending the most on the events that are the most attended? Or are we doing kind of the opposite? And Stephen may want to talk because I see his head.
I'd be more than happy to let Stephen talk.
Good evening. No, I would say honestly, there's no real true way to know. I mean, as you see the months that there are holidays, we invest in a larger, what we offer at the event. But I wouldn't say, with an outside event, there's just many factors. So I wouldn't say that the costs correlate to attendance.
But would you say, so in your history of seeing it, like for Founder's Day, the budget's 30,000. For Easter, it's like under 5,000. In your experience, is that a good idea? Like, are we getting a huge bang for our buck for Founder's Day, like with our attendance compared to smaller events?
I would say yes. It's a Saturday event. It's a longer event. It's a bigger deal to the city. Just for that example specifically, though, Easter probably isn't a good example because Easter is free to the community. Mm-hmm. It's very well attended. It's a shorter event. It's a holiday event. But as far as just actual block parties go, I think allocating a set amount just equally, I would say it has equal results. Block parties are going to be, there's no way of us knowing that a January block party will be better than a February block party. So I wouldn't say it correlates to the amount spent, in my opinion.
When it comes to the events as a whole, do you feel the current budget that we have laid out, is it adequate? Are there some events that it doesn't make sense for? Like, hey, we have an event that should be double, and then we have another event that we're spending too much on, but we just do it because it's, an important thing that, councils have always wanted to do.
Yeah, I would say a little bit of both. I think in the 2027 budget that Mike had proposed, like for instance, we increased the budget for Juneteenth because as you can see, it is growing as an event, but it's allocated in a $5,000 block party budget. So when we remove some of the, I guess, the not so busy months, just like April where there's not a holiday, so you're more focusing on increasing the holiday events, but I wouldn't say it correlates to the amount that we spend. I think that's one of the reasons and recommendations in dropping the block parties is to try to focus on the months where there are a holiday.
Awesome.
If I can just build on, we pretty much for our events, we have the set expense before we even open doors. Whether it's the sound folks for the band or whether it's the band themselves, if there's a car show component, if there's fireworks. So we have our expenses regardless in anticipating of what we know that what that attendance is. Eggs, the number of eggs we're stuffed for Easter, Arbor Day, the trees and all the goodies. So,
and there could be another line item that is just the in-kinds, like for the Easter in particular, you had a ton of stuff that was also donated, correct? And for the backpacks and other things. So we may be spending $5,000, but you guys may have another $5,000 donated.
Very possible.
I just have one question. It's actually this slide, so this is really good. Down here, we've got in red the final cost difference at 15.4, but revenue generated is 21. So we raised $5,800 more than we actually spent over the projected budget. Is that correct? So those seem to offset really well, like we've done something right here? Okay.
But budgeted correctly.
Hooray. All right, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have some comments and I have some questions. This past Saturday, there was the Christmas in July, as well as the backpack event. Both of those are major events. I would like to know why, or the rationale, what it was to have the backpack event and the Christmas in July, two major events on the same day.
Best way I can answer that, I was not aware of the day that that event was scheduled.
I'm sorry, Mike, I can't hear
I
you.
was not aware of the day that Christmas in July was scheduled.
Okay. Juneteenth, I'll be honest with you, I didn't want it at Cherry Lake. But Juneteenth was the bomb, okay? It really was the bomb. But several constituents, though, have asked me, why are so many events being held at Cherry Lake? So help me be able to tell them about moving some of the events from Lake David to Cherry Lake, because I want to get it right when I tell them.
So the question is, why are so many being moved to Cherry Lake?
Yes.
I think it's a great venue. So we're learning the park system ourselves. Also, what enabled us to move to Cherry Lake this year was the construction that was anticipated of taking place on South Lake Avenue that's occurring now, that was supposed to occur last February. So we shifted them up there, and more specifically Juneteenth. It was, we even asked the Recreation Advisory Committee on that one, where would they recommend we move the Juneteenth event, and they selected Cherry Lake Park. Stephen, and Frankie, they really like Cherry Lake Park as far as setup and parking. It flows a little bit better. So I don't have a specific answer. We're still working through what works best and where. And we'll continue to build on where they land as we move forward.
And out of curiosity, there were 4 months that has been suggested to be deleted for Second Friday, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, can you tell me why those 4 months?
They didn't, the Recreation Advisory Committee felt, why not identify the second Fridays that had another monthly holiday that we can merge the second Friday with, what was the goal, and something close. So for instance, January was scratched. We have Martin Luther King Jr. Day celebration, which is a week and a half from that second Friday, so they felt, let's just relieve staff, move that second Friday. The May one, you have Memorial Day. So it was identifying second Fridays that there was another big event that we could do better and put efforts towards.
Thank you for that clarification. Can you tell me when the RFP will be going out for the concession stand at South Lake Regional Park?
Park staff has, myself, I've worked with procurement, asked them to provide us with other jurisdictions, other agencies that have done an RFP, so we can review them, get proper language. Stephen and Francesca have have taken it upon them that they're going to review those, and we met with procurement last week, that we will put something together to get out on the streets with a goal of having a contract in place by October 1. However, I'm sorry, and however, Claremont has gone out for an RFP as well and are in the midst of possibly awarding. So once they award, we do have an opportunity of piggybacking. So we're waiting to see who that awarded contract is, if it is a local vendor, and if that's a route we want to go down as far as piggybacking. And I'm not saying and not go out for an RFP. The only thing I'd like to add with this concession stand agreement for South Lake Regional Park, this is a beast of a business. I'm not in that business. Others, maybe in the building have been, are, because it's not just cooking hamburgers and hot dogs at one location and rolling in when you want to roll in, close your windows and go home. This could be a Monday through Sunday business every single night, not when the sun's up, because then that's when most of the activities are, and it could even be on holidays. So somebody really needs to understand what they're signing up for, and so it's a win-win for them and for the city, because the city would need to get something back in the pocket from their operation.
Well, and you'd have to talk to Coralie about this, but it's no secret, everybody in this room knows that I am a very small business advocate. And I would like to see everyone who wants to apply get a chance to apply. Will all of them be eligible? Probably not. I'd be 99% sure that not all of them would be eligible for this, but I would like the opportunity to be there for the small businesses. And I don't know if this is legal, you'll have to ask Coralie. Perhaps before that RFP goes out, you talk to the public about what they want. Don't give us what you think I want, you think I want a hot dog, but I really may want a hamburger. So since the public is going to be utilizing this, I think it's only fair to have their input, to get their buy-in as well. And last but not least, what I want to say is the RAC advises, we decide. But what I don't really understand is, while they are advising, very few show up, or very few times. Now, can you say, well, Barbara, can you tell me 10 out of 12 months? No, Barbara can't tell you that, but Barbara's observant. And I just think that if they're going to advise that it's only, what's the word? It's important that they show up, even if they take turns, you this month, me next month, or whatever, but be a part of it. We take what you say, we use your buy-in, but RAC, please start coming or suggesting one a month, come to the events. Thank you.
Thank you. And if I'm asking a question because I was gone that's already been answered, just say, we'll talk to you later, okay? On the, can we go to baseball or basketball, and can I just ask that we number the slides from now on?
Yeah, you asked that.
That was already committed to.
That was part of my presentation in the beginning.
It was part of his presentation.
Any of them. I need consistency. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to you. In some areas, we said we were adding in the expense side, like the mowing the grass, the cleaning the bathrooms, and all that was on, I think, Lake David. But here on the other side, we don't do the same thing. I'm not seeing the cost of maintaining the fields. I'm not seeing the cost, say, renting a building, because at the end of the day, that's an expense to the general fund, right? And that gap is an expense, and it's so important right now, because if we have to go ask for more money, because something happens like in November, then we need to know how much that is. And we've got to be consistent in the reporting. We've got to be consistent. If we're going to say, expenses, all, which I like, on labor and all that added in, it's got to be on this side too, right? On the other side. Is the reason we're reducing the number of second Fridays due to labor? You're spreading labor too thin, or is it because you don't think we don't have a demand?
The conversation at the meetings, it's a lot of events and with the same 11 humans. And the flipping of the calendar weeks, sometimes you only have a week or two till you're getting to the next event. So it was allow the opportunity to do better instead of chasing the tail and trying to get ready for the next events, especially if we're getting ready to add athletic programming to the table, which is evenings and weekends. And I know Mr. Maslow earlier in the meeting mentioned about FTEs, being on hold, but there is a request from this department to have one full-time employee for mowing all parks. And that's been included in your 3 wins, actually, last week and this week, providing the acres that the men and women are taking care of, and also 2 part-time employees. Because if we want to be in the business, and I know it's a yes, it could be yes or no. We can say no, let somebody else run the programming. But I feel, other than your last comment, I felt that the revenues that we had here, I could with confidence state that I could probably cover the salary of a part-time person running the youth programs and having the registration fee at the right structure to cover the requested 2-time full-times. But if you're wanting to add in field maintenance and gymnasium lease, probably going to be failing.
Well, I'm not saying you have to reduce that. I'm saying we got to know what the actual cost is, right? And the cost is there now. We're already paying it.
Right.
We just have to identify it and understand what it is. Did we not cut, how many second Fridays did we cut this year? Did we have a second Friday on Christmas and then 4th of July and did we already cut those this year? I know we had 2 from the summer that are gone, and then we have,
There's what's in front of you is what we followed. So this 26 calendar year, you had a January, you had a February, we skipped March, you had an April, you had a May, then we have historically, the last couple of years, skipped June, July, and August. And you'll have a September next month, you'll have an October, November, and December.
well, October's in next year.
That's what I was just going to say. However,
Yeah, that's next year.
if you take the recommendation of the RAC, the October one would go away.
Okay, so we have Christmas, we have 4th of July, we have Founder's Day, and we have Halloween. So those months are gone now, right? Plus the 2 months you already take off for summer, right? So we're 6 months out of the year we'll have
So in front of you is, I don't think I have that in front of me, so I can't see the
It's okay,
screen.
you can just send it to me down the road.
So you would have February, September, November, and December.
And then you don't have August, and you already take off some in the summer, right?
Correct. And I think we probably rebrand the name. If it's not going to be a second Friday.
Okay, I just wanted to know how many we're actually going to have, that's all.
4, I'm sorry. 4.
So how many, we're going to have 6 a year?
4.
4 second Fridays a whole year?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But then really 8 because we've got 4 holidays that you're not charging you've got 4 just independent second Fridays plus Halloween plus 4th of July plus these other ones, right? So we'll have 8 total?
Not second Fridays. You're going to have 4
But
second
functions,
Fridays.
I mean,
but
months that we've got covered.
Yes.
Okay.
The only
Looks like the
month,
month of August is the only thing that's all alone.
correct. The only month that is nothing is August.
Hey, we had, how many staff did you have a year ago? How many staff members?
If, we may have added 1 within the last 2 years.
So how many is that?
I currently have 11 and a half.
And so we added the regional park. How many more staff members did we add? So we're running the regional park without increase in staff. Is that what we're saying?
There's a request in this year's budget for 1.
And is that enough? Does that cover mowing? Does that cover all the stuff that you need to do out there?
What's really hurt us now, and not to share too much information because of personnel, is once the grand opening of the park was, we had our team member go out on FMLA, who was the individual who was dragging Jimmy Thomas and would take on that. So we've lost the team member that takes care of the fields right now.
Yeah, I'm good with that. I just trying to get it realistic, because we don't have labor in some place. I don't want to move labor away from another place in order to add it on to an add-on. That should have been covered, that should be covered in that when we say we're going to do a regional park, the performer should have the labor in it, and to ask people to take on how many acres and mow it and keep it up, and probably, I've been in the business, you're going to be re-cleaning the concession stands, you know, and that kind of thing. And emptying garbage, I don't know how you say we take on something like that without adding on another body, or 2, or 3. I mean, we just need a real, I'm not criticizing, we need a real cost. At the end of the day, what is that really costing us?
Yeah, right now, Mr. Mayor, I'm showing 11.5 full-time equivalents. That includes part-time staff, but me and Mike still have to sit down to make sure, from a position control standpoint, his employee resources are covered so that we can present that in detail, what's open, what's part-time, what's full-time, what the total cost is. Can we fill this full-time position? If we need to, this is why. So that analysis will be brought forth on the subsequent workshop, and we'll have it all laid out, and I'll go department to department with each of the heads, including TJ.
Okay, I'm just trying to get the delta, right?
No,
I mean, what the
totally.
actual expense is versus what we bring in. Just what's that delta, that true delta, and what's it going to be? Because you don't want to put a round peg in a square hole and have to live with it, right?
100%, totally valid.
Concession stands. Just please, I'd like you to make sure we get with that RFP, or we get with Orlando, and we get with Orange County, because they do those all the time for the stadiums. And when you bring in the professional people with really good liability insurance and stuff, it's really good, because they have to have a place to really prep the food, and they have to have the refrigerated trucks to get them there. There's a lot of things. One of the most dangerous things you can do in the world is what you're getting ready to do in that concession stand, because of all the steps that it has to go through. And please reach out to them. I know that they use different vendors for different things, but you might want to just consider that, and make sure when we're going through those RFPs that they do have the proper equipment to, because I don't know if I've heard, I don't know if you follow the same thing I do. I know other people on where these foodborne illnesses come from and how they take over in some of these areas. I think that was a very nice presentation. I appreciate it. Let's just get the delta going, so we know. We should have a whole list of that. What we're going to need, if this happens, we need to know what the deltas are on each one of those things.
Chris and I have also discussed compartmentalizing the South Lake Regional Park into its own funds so we could more easily account for, not only just in finance, but also in parks. Here's all the revenues, here's all the expenses related to this one park.
I'll just reiterate, in case I didn't say it, because I'm not a very good communicator, I think each one of the directors should have their own business unit with all of the expenses, all of the revenues in there. We know we subsidize each one, and at no point would I ever say, make a profit, but we do need to know what it is. And because a lot of things, we might at one day say, we need to build our own basketball arena, or we need to do something different, than we're doing. But I'm more concerned right now if we lose $3.5 million, the year after. What do we have to go to our representative who stood up here and said, we're going to help you out? We need to know exactly what we need to be asking for, Thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Your input was unbelievable. Doctor, thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, closing remarks from Chris and Mike, just to close out the workshop. Anything that we really need to focus on between now and that August 25th workshop?
Yeah, absolutely. Mike Fitzgerald. Marion, is it working? Is it not working? Test.
Nope.
Mike Fitzgerald with the Clarion. Just as an outsider that sees many other organizations, the presentation that you saw today, while it shows a surplus in the general fund, and that's what the workshop here is for, the general fund today, as well as the building fund, but the general fund, when you add in the CIP and the transfer to the fire department, we are losing cash. And so you are correct, that's going to come out of reserves. What does that really mean? That's taking cash out of our savings account to plug the hole. And so when you saw that original cash 5-year, done a great job getting up to 14 million. We're talking about taking 6 right off the top. If we approve this budget as you sort of see it here, as it's tightening up in the next 30 days. My recommendation to the council is that I would not have a published budget book showing that we're funding the general fund out of cash reserves. Therefore, my suggestion is to cut the CIP, whatever that number is, to balance to 0. And so there's a couple places to do that. I think the strategic initiative and council lines is give finance the permission to take that all the way down to 0 if we need to balance, get through the November ballot, and then based on the property tax situation, you can always come back in next year, Q1, and do a budget amendment and put some things back on the table for the council in their strategic pot. The other thing is that when you have your stakeholders, your analysts, your bankers, your utility fund bondholders, when they look at your financials, they'll pick up on that. They'll pick up on reduction in cash to the general fund, which is traditionally the backstop of the city. Additionally, that $5 million in CIP is actually more because here at Groveland, you've created a discretionary tax fund, and you've got $5 million in CIP over there. But everywhere else, discretionary tax is in the general fund. We've only broken it out here for whatever those purposes were historically. So the reality is, out of your $35 million revenue, you've got over 10, 11 million in capital out of the general fund. I would advise us to take a look at that. So, thank you.
We want to preserve our reserves, make sure that we're not, funding any operations or additional capital projects on debt. That's going to require some hard cuts between now and the August 25th workshop. So I just want to set the tone for council. We're going to speak more about individually in terms of capital improvements in different areas that we can cut. We do have some ideas in terms of reallocating some of the staff funding from the other revenue funds like utilities and building to offset the impact of the general. But just a message to not only the council, but also our department directors, we have some tough decisions to make sure that we're in good shape financially. And it might feel painful at times, but it's to preserve good financial health, which is, as we all know, that's one of the 5 pillars of our strategic plan.
Very wise words, and I think at the beginning of the year, we said infrastructure. Infrastructure you can't get away from. All the nice to-dos, all the other stuff we've eliminated. We haven't done anything with infrastructure for too long, and it's coming back to get us. So I would definitely make sure that we can do that, and we appreciate that coming out. But I also would love to build on what you're saying. Can we get the financial structure and reporting done as business does business? I mean, we have these one-offs where we move stuff around. There's no reason for us to have a whole different financial reporting system than somebody else has down the road. And I didn't hear, but I hope we get these budgets done monthly, by monthly allocation into each department, so we can measure a budget against actuals by month next year, so we know that, that this project was budgeted and it isn't there. And we've had a lot of that, you know. I mean, I'm still looking for shame on us. Where's the second code guy, you know, code enforcement person?
They have been hired, yes.
Yeah, I mean, but we go all this time and wait till the end, you know, and we've got to, when we tell the public we're going to do something, we need to do it, and it can't be carried over. It can't be a carryover and a carryover. We've got to do it.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I will confirm that me and my team have had discussions about making sure we clean up and reorganize the chart of accounts so that we can organize things much more better. That will be directly reflective of the budget as well, as we discussed. So after this budget season, by the start of the following fiscal year, we should be ready to go to rock and roll.
Thank you. Closing comments? No. Closing comments? Closing comments?
Just don't go too far away. We have the next workshop on the millage rate.
Okay, we'll adjourn this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.